This happened a few months ago. I'm Mark, 35, and I had just moved back into my childhood home to care for my mom. It felt comforting. But it was also old and creaky, and I wondered if I really remembered it correctly. I mean, I had never thought ghosts existed, but now I had my doubts creeping in. The first storm hit out of nowhere one evening. I was sitting in the living room, working on my graphic design stuff. The wind picked up, rattling the windows. I thought it was just a strong storm, nothing unusual for this time of year. The rain slammed against the glass. Just me and my mom were here, and I figured she'd be asleep. I concentrated when I heard a faint tapping. I thought it was branches brushing against the window. My heart raced a bit, but I shrugged it off. I looked over, and something black darted past the glass. I froze. I blinked and couldn't see anything. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But that got me thinking. I was sure nobody else was outside. A shiver ran up my spine, but I shook it off and went back to work. The storms continued, each stronger than the last. The tapping came back, and this time it was harder, almost insistent. I felt uneasy, but I didn't want to worry my mom. Late at night, I noticed creaking sounds from the attic. Maybe it was just the wind, but it felt different. I kept hearing footsteps above me. I tried to convince myself it had to be old pipes or the house settling. One evening, a forgotten children's toy appeared on the living room floor. A little wooden car bright red with peeling paint. I don't know how it got there. I hadn't brought anything like that into the house. The unsettling feeling clawed at me. I swear I had checked this room and hadn't seen anything there. I picked it up, and cold fingers ran down my back. "Mom?" I called out. No answer. I walked toward the stairs, ready to check on her. The tapping picked up again, louder this time. My heart pounded. I stepped back. The dim light flickered as thunder roared outside. Maybe it was just the storm messing with the power. But I felt like I wasn't alone. That thought gnawed at me. I took a deep breath and rushed upstairs to check on my mom. I turned the handle, and the door creaked open. She was asleep, and the room was quiet. Relief washed over me, but confusion lingered. The storm kept raging outside as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for something. Then one night, during a particularly bad storm, I heard shuffling behind me. I turned around, more afraid than I wanted to admit. The shadows in the corners of the room danced with the lightning. I took a step back. I was sure I couldn't be alone anymore. The tapping grew louder, and each clap of thunder felt like an answer to some unasked question. It all confused me, and I still wonder if something was watching me from the shadows. The next day, I decided things couldn't continue like this. I needed to find out what was happening. So, I took a flashlight and made my way to the attic. The door creaked as I pulled it open, revealing a set of stairs that felt like they lead to nowhere. Dust hung in the air, illuminated by the narrow beam of my flashlight. The tapping seemed to echo through the rafters. I climbed the staircase slowly, my heart pounding with each step. The attic was cluttered with old boxes and furniture draped in sheets. Memories floated back, but I pushed them aside. I had to focus. I remembered my mom telling stories about the life we had lived here, but this was not the time for nostalgia. As I reached the top, I felt an unsettling chill. I scanned the room, searching for anything unusual. When I found nothing, I turned to leave, but then I noticed a small door at the far end. It was partially open, and I had never seen it before. It caught my attention, pulling me closer. The door emitted more of that strange tapping sound, as if something was inside trying to get out. I hesitated. Should I check it or go back? My instincts screamed for me to turn around, but curiosity anchored my feet. I pushed the door open wider and peered inside. The room was dark, too dark for my flashlight to penetrate. I took a step back, and just as I did, I caught a glimpse of something. A shadow darted across the wall, and I stumbled backward, nearly losing my footing. That's when I heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, but it sent shivers down my spine. Help! The voice sounded almost childlike. My pulse quickened. Who was calling for help? I couldn't make sense of it. I felt rooted to the spot, torn between wanting to flee and the urge to discover the truth. Just then, a loud crash came from the main floor. I jumped, adrenaline coursing through me. I dashed down the stairs, heart racing, ignoring the noise in the attic. I could feel a thick tension in the air as I reached the living room. A picture frame lay shattered on the ground. I knelt to pick it up and noticed that the glass had shattered outwards, not inwards. It made no sense. I looked around, desperate for any explanation. The room felt heavy, like something was pressing down on me. And then I heard it again, the tapping, now quick and frantic. It wasn't the storm this time. It was coming from the walls. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. My breath caught in my throat. I staggered back, fumbling for my phone to use as a flashlight. "Mom!" I called out, panic starting to settle in. The call echoed back to me, swallowed by the darkness. I felt a presence behind me, a sensation of cold air rushing past. My instincts kicked into high gear. I needed to get out of this house. But just as I turned toward the front door, a figure appeared in the shadows, eerily still and watching. My heart raced as I realized someone wasn't just in the house. Something was. And it was watching me. The figure loomed in the dim light, its outlines swirling like smoke. I could barely make out its features, but the way it stood still sent a tremor of fear through me. "Who are you?" I stammered, gripping my flashlight like a lifeline. I had only meant to find answers, but now I felt trapped in a nightmare. It didn't answer. Instead, it moved closer, the floor creaking beneath its weight. I stumbled backward, my back colliding with the wall. Panic surged through me. I turned to run, but the shadows clung to me, heavy and suffocating. The memory of that childlike whisper echoed in my mind, urging me to stay, but I couldn't. I bolted toward the kitchen, where I knew I could find the back door. If I could just get outside, I could breathe again. But as I reached the doorway, something cold brushed against my arm. I froze, glancing over my shoulder. The figure was closer now, its eyes a deep, unsettling black piercing through the darkness. I hesitated, my mind racing. Maybe it needed help? But the memory of that voice haunted me. Help, it didn't feel right. I yanked open the back door and stumbled out into the rain-soaked air, gasping for breath. Thunder rolled overhead, drowning out my thoughts. I raced down the porch steps, slipping on the wet wood. My bare feet splashed in puddles as I ran toward the tree line, trying to distance myself from the house. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, the cold rain soaking my clothes. Every instinct urged me to keep moving. Then I heard it again, tapping. It seemed to follow me, regardless of the distance I put between myself and the house. I turned around, half expecting to see that figure in the doorway, but instead, I saw nothing but the gray silhouette of the house against the stormy sky. "Just the wind," I muttered, trying to convince myself. I pressed on, darting through the trees until I found a large, gnarled oak. I ducked behind it, attempting to catch my breath. My mind raced with questions. What had I seen? Who was that figure? And what did the tapping mean? From the direction of the house, I thought I heard that whisper again, clearer this time. "Help me!" It was desperate, almost pleading. I shivered and squeezed my eyes shut, wishing it would stop. My heart was pounding harder than ever. Just then, my flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in darkness beside the ancient tree. Panic clawed at me as I scrambled for my phone. The screen lit up, revealing my shaking hands. Before I could collect my thoughts, something caught my eye near the house. A faint glow was emanating from the attic window. I squinted into the rising wind, my breath hitching in my throat. "What are you?" I said, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. That glow pulsed in the dark, mesmerizing and terrifying at the same time. I couldn't turn away. I was drawn to it, as if it held the answers I so desperately sought. But what if it only pulled me deeper into whatever darkness lived in that house? I stood frozen, knowing I had to make a choice, run or confront the truth that awaited me. I took a deep breath, weighing the options in my mind. The glow from the attic flickered again, like a beacon calling me back. I had left the house behind, but I felt its pull growing stronger. Maybe if I confronted whatever was waiting for me, I could finally make sense of this nightmare. I started toward the house, the rain drenching me as I moved. The tapping sound returned, louder now, echoing off the trees and twisting in the wind. It wasn't random, it felt intentional. My pulse quickened, and I fought the urge to turn and run once more. As I approached, I realized the front door was ajar. Had I left it that way? Panic rose in my throat. I paused, peering into the darkness behind the door. I could hardly see anything inside, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. I stepped carefully over the threshold, the wood creaking under my feet. The house was just as I remembered it, dusty, deserted, and steeped in a sense of loss. The faint glow from the attic drew my attention again, illuminating the staircase. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Whatever it was here, just out of sight. I took tentative steps up the stairs, the sound of thunder rumbling above me. With each step, the tapping grew more pronounced. It seemed to originate from the attic. My hands trembled as I reached for the door at the top of the stairs. Would it still be there, that figure? Or had it gone? Pushing the door open, I was hit with a wave of cold air. The glow radiated from a corner of the attic, illuminating old furniture draped in sheets, cobwebs creating a haunting scene. I strained my eyes, searching for the source of the mysterious light. Then I saw it, an old lamp sitting on a rickety table, its bulb flickering as if trying to stay alive. I took a step closer. The glow revealed a small, familiar object resting on the table, a faded picture frame. I reached for it, not realizing the tapping sound had ceased. The moment my fingers made contact with the frame, my heart dropped. It was a picture of a boy. The same boy I had seen in my dreams. His eyes mirrored the emptiness I felt. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Just then, the attic door slammed shut behind me. I whirled around, adrenaline flooding my system. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to shift, growing thicker. My breath caught in my throat. Then I heard it again, the whisper, now right next to me. "Help me!" Panic surged as I turned back to the photo, hoping for answers. But when the room went cold, and the glow flickered one last time before dying completely. I stood in darkness, trapped between the unknown and a past I didn't understand. And then, I felt a presence behind me. I wasn't alone. I braced myself, my heart pounding as I turned slowly. The shadows twisted around me, making it difficult to tell where the presence was coming from. My eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of movement. "Hello?" I called out, though my voice sounded small and fragile against the silence. The attic door was no longer an option. I needed to find another way out. But just as I took a step, I heard a soft, barely audible sound, a sigh, almost like a whisper of wind. My skin prickled. It felt like someone's breath against my neck. I froze, instinctively trying to make myself smaller, as if that would block whatever was looming behind me. "Help me," the voice came again, clearer this time, ringing in my ears. I felt the words wrap around my heart, sending chills down my spine. I was filled with a mix of dread and a strange compulsion to respond. Who was this boy? What did he want from me? I turned back toward the table where the photo was still lying, and that S when I noticed something else. Another object. My breath hitched. Next to the frame was a small, wooden box, intricately carved but coated in a thick layer of dust. I couldn't remember seeing it before. Had it been there all along, or had it appeared just now? I approached it cautiously. My fingers brushed against the cool wood, and a tremor shot through me. I hesitated, uncertain if opening it was wise. The whispering grew louder, now layered with urgency. The boy's image burned in my memory the way he seemed caught between worlds, forever lost. "What do you want?" I stammered, my voice shaky. The pressure in the air seemed to shift, the shadows in the corners thickened again. The box creaked as if it was inviting me to open it. With a heavy exhale, I lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of old items, each one telling a story. A faded stuffed animal, a rusty key, and what looked like a crumpled letter tied with string. I pulled out the letter, my fingers trembling as I unfolded it. The paper felt fragile, like it could crumble in my hands. Just then, a sudden crack of thunder boomed overhead, and the lights in the attic flickered violently. The room felt alive, and everything around me surged with energy. The whispering became frantic, almost panicked. I looked down at the letter, my heart racing. It was dated years ago, but the words were scrawled in a child's hand. "If you find me, please don't be afraid. I just want to go home." I felt a pulse of urgency in those words. I glanced around the room, knowing I had to make a choice. But before I could formulate a plan, the attic door rattled violently, as if someone or something was trying to get in. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows, and I understood. Someone or something was trapped here with me. I took a step back, my mind racing. The voice was whispering again, louder and more demanding. "Help me." The accusation in it hung heavy in the air. I couldn't ignore it. I had to confront whatever was happening. The box sat there, almost mocking me. The letter felt like it was burning a hole in my hand. I had to know more about the boy. I looked back at the fading photograph. His eyes seemed to plead with me, urging me to let go of my fear and dig deeper. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence returned, thick and unsettling. I felt the shadows shift again, creeping closer. My pulse quickened. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught another flicker of movement. I turned abruptly. There, in the darkest corner of the attic, a figure emerged. It wasn't solid but rather a wisp of shadow, forming and reforming, like it was struggling to stabilize. I took a deep breath, summoning my courage. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, willing the words to sound brave. The figure paused for a moment, and then the whisper returned, echoing through the attic. "Help me please." The intensity of the plea made my stomach churn. I felt a mixture of terror and an overwhelming urgency to reach out. But as I took a step closer, the figure recoiled, swirling back into the shadows. My heart raced as I realized that it was scared of me. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The light from the weak bulb above flickered, casting erratic shadows against the walls. I turned back to the box. I couldn't understand the connection yet, but it was clear it held vital clues. I knelt down, the dust rising around me, and pulled out the other items. The stuffed animal looked familiar, like something from my childhood, but it was hard to place. The key was cold and heavy in my palm. I examined the old letter tied to the stuffed toy, hoping it might provide answers. Just as I reached to open it, the rattling at the door came back, louder than before. "Let me out!" I screamed. But the shadows answered with silence. The whisper became frantic, a cacophony of pleas that seemed to merge and amplify in the tight attic space. I felt surrounded, trapped between the living and the dead. Then, in the chaos, I saw it, something I hadn't noticed before. Something hung from the ceiling, swinging slightly. A small mirror, dusty and cracked, was affixed to the wall at an odd angle. As I drew closer, I felt the temperature drop, the air thickening around me. The reflective surface was dark, nearly opaque, but something caught my eye, a face, ghostly and pale, staring back at me. The boy from the photograph. Fear gripped me harder than ever. I knew this wasn't just about a lost spirit, it was about understanding a connection deeper than time or loss. And then it hit me, I had to face whatever was in that mirror before I could truly help him. With a sudden crash, the door burst open, and the shadows inside the attic spiraled violently. Someone or something was coming, and I was running out of time. The door swung wide, revealing a figure framed in the dim light from the hallway. My heart sank as I recognized the silhouette. It was my older brother, Alex. "What the hell are you doing up here?" he shouted, his voice a blend of confusion and concern. The shadows darted for cover, retreating into the corners of the attic as if afraid of him. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words jammed in my throat. How could I tell him about the whispers and the shadowy figure? Instead, I swallowed hard and glanced back at the mirror. The boy's face was still there, his expression frozen in a haunting plea. Alex stepped closer, frowning at the box on the floor. "Did you find something?" He gestured toward the pile of objects. Before I could answer, he picked up the stuffed animal. There was a softness in his gaze that didn't match the tension I felt in the air. "Yeah, but it's complicated," I stammered, trying to gather my thoughts. "I don't even know how to explain it without sounding crazy." He nodded slowly, sensing the gravity in my voice. "Try me. I've seen stranger things." Suddenly, darkness flickered in the back of my mind. The boy in the mirror. I remembered something else. "The letter," I said urgently. "I need to see it." I dove for the box, rummaging through the items until I found it. The paper was yellowed and frayed. "Read it," Alex urged, curiosity piqued. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. The attic felt alive, every creak and crevice echoing my fears. Finally, I unfolded the letter, the edges crumbling under the pressure of my fingers. A chill swept through me as I read, "To whoever finds this, I am lost. I need you to understand my pain. I was taken before I could be saved. Find the key to my freedom, or I remain bound to this place forever." "What does it mean?" Alex asked, leaning closer. "It means," I said slowly, processing my thoughts, "that whoever this boy is, he was trapped here. Like us." Just then, the attic light flickered violently, and the temperature dropped again. I felt a presence in the room, a suffocating weight pressing down on me. The mirror glinted ominously as the boy's face twisted into a distressed grimace. "Get back!" I yelled, backing away instinctively. But Alex stood his ground, raising the stuffed animal as if it could ward off whatever was looming. Before I could say anything, the shadows surged back, swirling like a whirlwind, and the whisper returned, now urgent and demanding. "Help me! Help me!" I felt a violent pull towards the mirror, a gravity that threatened to swallow me whole. Panic raced through my veins. "Alex, we need to get out," but it was too late. The air cracked like a whip, and the mirror exploded in a burst of light and darkness. In that instant, I saw the boy's form, reaching out, his eyes widening in a mixture of desperation and hope. And then everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, it felt like I had been jolted from a nightmare, but the echoes of darkness clung to me. I was sprawled on the attic floor, and the cold wood pressed against my skin. As I shifted, I realized Alex was beside me, groaning softly. "Alex!" I shook him gently. His eyes blinked open, confusion swirling in his gaze. "What just happened?" he mumbled, sitting up, raking a hand through his hair. "I don't know," I whispered, still in shock. The mirror it shattered. We both turned our heads to where the mirror had been. All that remained was a jagged outline on the wall and shards of glass scattered like forgotten memories on the floor. The air felt charged with something nameless and terrifying. "Did you see the boy?" Alex asked, his voice trembling slightly. I nodded, recalling the urgency in those wide eyes, the plea for help. "He was trapped. We need to figure out how to set him free." "Free?" He shook his head, as if trying to dislodge the thoughts. "That sounds like a bad idea, don't you think?" But I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were meant to do something, that we were in this together now. The letter said something about a key. "We have to find it." The attic seemed to respond to our conversation, buzzing with a life of its own. The shadows skittered about like restless spirits. I felt chilled, and not just from the drop in temperature. I stood up, brushing myself off, and glanced around. The box had fallen close to the fragile remnants of the mirror. I bent down to pick it up and noticed something tucked beneath it. My breath caught in my throat as I pulled out a small, rusted key. "This must be it," I muttered, holding it up to the light. Alex blinked at me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dread. "What if it isn't? What if we just let it go, you know?" "No," I said firmly, though my heart raced. "We can't walk away from this. We owe it to him to at least try." The word settled in the air like an uninvited guest. Suddenly, the shadows thickened around us, swarming with a feral energy. I felt a chill creep down my spine, as if the house itself were warning us. "Listen," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "If that boy is tied to this place, what else might be?" Before I had a chance to respond, the attic door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Our eyes locked in alarm as the darkness deepened around us. "Did you?" I started, but the whisper returned, louder and more insistent this time. "Help me. Help me." I grabbed Alex's arm, terrified but resolved. "We have to move. Now." As we turned to face the door, I felt something brush against my cheek. I whipped around, half expecting to see the boy, but the attic was empty except for us. The shadows twisted hungrily, and a flicker of movement in the corner caught my eye. That's when I saw it, figures forming in the dark, bodies emerging from the shadows, each one reaching out toward us. "Run!" I screamed, my voice cracking as we bolted toward the door, hearts racing and breath hitching with panic. The key felt heavy in my pocket, a weight that might be our only hope. But as I yanked on the doorknob, the brass felt hot, like it was alive, and I realized that whatever was happening was just beginning. The door wouldn't budge. No matter how hard I pulled, it felt like it had melded into the wall. My heart pounded in my chest, drowning out the fearful whispers surrounding us. Alex stood beside me, panic flashing across his face. I turned to him, my voice a frantic whisper. "What do we do? We can't stay here." He glanced nervously around the attic, his eyes wide. "Maybe the key? Can it open something else?" My mind raced. What if there were other doors? I dropped down to search the floor, hoping to find something hidden. The chilling whispers seemed to close in on us, urging me onwards. "Help me. Help me." Each plea more desperate than the last. As I rummaged through the scattered shards of glass and dust, I noticed a slight glimmer in the far corner of the attic. I crawled towards it, my heartbeat synchronizing with the echoes of the basement below. Then I saw it, a small, old-fashioned chest nestled against a wooden beam, its surface clouded with neglect. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over its surface. It seemed misplaced, a forgotten secret waiting to be uncovered. "It might have what we need," I said, almost to myself. "Or it could be worse," Alex shot back, but the apprehension in his voice suggested he was already leaning toward a desperate hope. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded toward the chest. "We need to look. It could help the boy." The moment I lifted the lid, a rush of cold air burst forth. I stumbled back, catching my breath, but the sight inside left me breathless. Old clothes, yellowed pages, and various trinkets lay sprawled amidst a tangle of memories, but one item stood out: a faded photograph. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. It was a picture of a boy, but not just any boy, it was him. His face seemed so familiar, but his eyes held a sadness that sent a shiver down my spine. There were symbols drawn along the edges, symbols I couldn't decipher but instinctively felt were important. "What is it?" Alex asked, peering over my shoulder. "It's him," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But why is this here? What does it mean?" His gaze shifted, and fear washed over his features. "The whispers, they are stronger. Can't you hear them?" I nodded. They were evolving, shifting from pleas to something darker. "We need to hurry. We have to find a way to open the door. This might be why he needed us." But just as I said that, the attic shifted. Dust fell from the rafters, and the shadows began to writhe like serpents. The figures forming around us were no longer mere silhouettes, they took on form, faces twisted in anger and despair. "Leave him alone," I shouted, clutching the photograph tightly. Suddenly, the horde of shadows surged toward us, reaching with elongated arms, claws of darkness hungry for something we could not give. Alex grabbed my arm, and we pushed back against the chaos, but the grip of the shadows felt as real as the cold wood beneath us. It was now or never. "We have to use the key," I yelled, recalling the weight it carried in my pocket. "We need to find what it opens fast." As I fumbled for it, the world around us felt like it was collapsing, the darkness mounting, and I knew we were running out of time. In that moment, everything shifted. The lights flickered, the walls shuddered, and I felt a voice deep inside me, clear as day, whisper, "You have what you need. Just trust." All at once, I felt a warmth radiate from the key, as if it had awakened. But the shadows weren't backing down. "Find a door. Find the way out," Alex urged, fear plastered across his face. I looked around, desperately searching for anything that might reveal a path. And just like that, I caught sight of another door at the opposite end of the attic, one I hadn't seen before. My heart raced as I realized this might be our only chance. We had to fight through the shadows. I could feel the pull of the photograph, the boy's sad eyes urging me forward. "This way," I shouted, grabbing Alex's hand. As we sprinted toward the door, the whispers morphed into a roar. I could feel the shadows clawing, grasping for us. Would we make it? In that chaotic moment, we burst toward the door, the key held high, ready to unlock the next terrifying chapter of this nightmare. As we crashed into the door, the key glinted in my trembling hand, reflecting the chaos swirling around us. The shadows lunged forward, their dark arms stretching through the air as if desperate to claim us. I thrust the key into the lock, my heart racing, and twisted it with every ounce of strength I had left. The door shuddered, and for a moment, I feared it wouldn't open. But then, a soft click resounded in the thick silence, and the door creaked open, revealing a blinding light that spilled into the attic. "Go!" I shouted, pulling Alex through the door just as the shadows surged toward us. We tumbled into the brightness, and as the door slammed shut behind us, the screams of despair faded to silence. I collapsed against the wooden frame of the door, gasping for breath, my heart racing wildly in my chest. The air hummed with an unexplainable energy, different from the oppressive weight of the attic. The shadows that had enveloped us seemed to retreat, whispering their angry farewell. That primal fear waned, leaving a strange sense of relief in its wake. "Where are we?" Alex panted, looking around. We were no longer inside the attic. It felt almost like the familiar hall of the childhood home, but it was different, somehow lighter, brighter. The worn wallpaper had transformed into vibrant colors, and sunlight streamed through the windows. It was as if we had stepped into a memory, or perhaps a dream. I don't know," I replied, still trying to regain my bearings. My fingers brushed against the photograph I had clutched tightly. It felt oddly warm in my hand. The boy, he wanted us to help him. Before I could elaborate further, the sound of laughter echoed faintly through the air. Joyful, innocent laughter. It was haunting and beautiful all at once. I glanced at Alex, his expression a mix of confusion and cautious hope. What if this is his world? I murmured, the realization settling over me. What if we set him free? Or we made it worse, Alex countered, still looking around as if expecting the shadows to follow us through the door. We took a few tentative steps forward, and with each step, the atmosphere lightened even more. As we navigated through the hall, the laughter grew louder, drawing us closer to its source. We emerged into what was once our old living room, now alive with energy. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the familiar furniture and the little wooden car I had seen before. It sat neatly on the side table, as if waiting for someone to play. In the center of the room, laughing children danced in a circle, ghostly apparitions flickering in and out of existence. Among them was the boy from the photograph, his face bright, filled with joy instead of sorrow. He radiated warmth, and as he locked eyes with me, his expression of gratitude was unmistakable. "Thank you," he mouthed silently, his smile wide and freeing. Then, just like that, the laughter faded, and the children began to disperse. They faded into the light, leaving an echo of happiness and relief in their wake. "Did we do it?" Alex whispered, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. "I think so," I replied, overwhelmed but hopeful. The boy's spirit seemed to fill the space around us with lingering warmth, a final farewell or a promise of peace. Just as the last remnants of laughter faded, I noticed the photograph slipping from my fingers, gliding gracefully to the floor. As it landed on the wooden surface face up, the boy's image shimmering for a heartbeat before settling back into its faded state. Before I could reflect further, a sharp chill coursed through the room, and as I turned, the familiar weight of the shadows returned, pulling at the edges of my vision as they danced in the corners of the home. "Let us get out of here," I urged, feeling a creeping dread snake back into my mind. I could still hear whispers straining toward us from the shadows, their tormented cries more distant but still present. As we stepped back toward the door we had come through, I felt as though the house itself held its breath, its lingering grief etched into the very walls. "Do you think we truly helped him?" Alex asked quietly, glancing back at the living room as if somehow sensing the tension still lurking within it. "I hope so," I replied. "But some things never truly leave. Not completely." The door swung open as we pushed through, and I took a last glance at the living room. The warmth had faded, the atmosphere now lingering in a delicate balance between peace and sorrow. As we stepped out into the world outside, I couldn't shake the uneasiness that remained. Had I truly helped the boy find peace? Or had we simply traded one haunting for another? I moved forward, determined to leave that home behind, but a part of me understood that I would carry it with me and the shadows might never completely vanish. With each step into the daylight, I realized that questions lingered, shadows would exist, but perhaps one child had found his way home. Sometimes the most profound stories were those left unfinished, where clarity and ambiguity coalesced in unsettling harmony. Later that night, as I settled down into my new temporary home, I thought I might hear whispers in the wind. It wasn't fear that gripped me but a quiet understanding that not all echoes of the past needed to be resolved. Some memories, some spirits, just wanted to be remembered.